Wow, what a compelling and riveting conversation between Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms and artist Carrie Mae Weems. Now we're here for the second part of the conversation where I'll be in conversation with artist Carrie Mae Weems. Welcome. So in the early days of the pandemic, Carrie, you really moved swiftly and started a campaign entitled Resist COVID, Take 6. What compelled you to begin this campaign and really launch this billboard project? And what has been the impact thus far?
Well, it really started. I was. It was just at the very, very, very beginning of the lockdown. Maybe even a few days before, lockdowns had been declared in New York. But I was on the phone with my closest friend, Pierre Loving, and we were talking about what this was, what this pandemic was. Of course, none of us have ever experienced anything like this. We didn't really understand completely what it meant, but we knew that Black people were going to be affected. We knew that for sure. You know, and that brown people would be affected. And then we read and heard about Mayor Lightfoot in Chicago and the statistics that she had come out with, that we have some information about the impact, the extraordinary impact of COVID on people of color, Native Americans. The numbers are even more catastrophic. Um, Amongst Latino Americans, horrible. And so we started immediately. Pierre spent the night writing a proposal. We didn't know exactly who we were going to give it to, but we started drafting up ideas about the importance of really paying attention to this and starting a public awareness campaign. And within 24 hours, Pierre had finished her proposal, and I had started working on the first images for the project. Really thinking about how are we going to reach people, that it needed to be a public awareness campaign, an artist-driven public awareness campaign that made use of wonderful text, beautiful ideas, wonderful language, powerful images that would be very, very specifically targeted to the general population, but specifically targeted towards people of color.
Well, let's move through some of these amazing billboards that are actually in place in various cities throughout the country now.
Yeah, thank you. And it's really wonderful also to hear you, to see you, to be with you today, and to really think about the importance of this campaign. And so, again, I've been working with image and text for a very long time. And so in some ways, it sort of came natural to me to really sort of respond that of course, besides many of the things that I do, I think of myself also as a certain kind of activist, or a person that's really interested in activating certain kinds of ideas around critical thinking and critical thought. And so it just became a kind of natural response, and to the world around me. Of course, I wanted to thank the workers. I wanted to thank the farmer, the shopkeeper, the postal worker, the delivery person, the barber and the butcher, the teacher and the sweeper, the nanny and the nurse, the clerk and the doctor. Really paying attention to those people who've been out there on the front lines, really taking care of us. I wanted to make sure that we had this in multiple languages. Not only would it be in English, but of course we understood that the impact amongst Native Americans and Latino Americans, and so it was really important to use Spanish. And we're now working on several Native languages as well as we continue to move the project around the country. The project is in now 12 different cities, including, of course, the city of Atlanta and Savannah, along with Chicago and Detroit, Dallas, New York, of course, New York City, Syracuse, etc. And we knew that we also really wanted to have a number of different modes of communication with our audience. That we wanted to have posters and flyers that could go into the home. They would be inserted. We did newspaper inserts. And we printed thousands of them in English and Spanish so that people could bring this material into the home, making sure always that there was a sort of a level of attention to detail, to language, to image, etc., in order to really drive the point home. Because I know that messaging really matters. How text is constructed really matters. What an image looks like really matters, and that combination between the two then really matter. And then we thought about the various modes again, whether it would be a billboard, a poster, a broad sign, something that appeared at a bus shelter, on the back of a bus, at the airport, like in Atlanta, or on MARTA in Atlanta, on the backs of buses in Syracuse. But also thinking about church fans, right? Knowing that we could use those throughout the summer months for sure, even as churches were, like everybody else, under the lockdown. Using recyclable bags, thanking the workers on the one hand, and on the other side, having information about COVID-19 and these simple safety measures that were absolutely critical and crucial to keeping us safe. Washing our hands, etc., wearing a mask, staying home if and when uh, possible, maintaining social distance, basic things that even the president himself has simply denied was a reality and are necessary. Door hangers, so that you could place these outside your door. My mother was concerned that people were coming to her house. She wanted people to know that she was trying to pay attention to what was going on in the world. So we developed door hangers in English and in Spanish. Magnets that would go into shopping bags, into our grocery bags, etc. Buttons that could be worn, hats that could be made, etc. We received a proclamation from the city of Syracuse, resist COVID, take 6. So we've been moving this material, all these ideas around, and from Atlanta to Austria, the project has really sort of taken on great legs. It was really wonderful spending time this morning talking with Mayor Bottoms about what's going on in Atlanta, and her deep understanding of the social protocols necessary to maintain safety for the citizens, so that we can actually open back up the not too distant future and continue our lives in some sort of way. It really matters that we shouldn't worry, that we can hold hands again if we follow some very simple protocols.
So, Carrie, so many questions have really come top of mind for me, just listening to you discuss how the project has been installed and shared in various cities. And I'd love to just park for a moment on how various cities have responded to the work, and how those citizens have really taken action, or have really put themselves out there to take your call to action seriously. So what has been the response around the world to the project?
It's been, I can answer that in two ways. I mean, it has been a dynamic project. I think at a certain point, uh, the most important thing to me initially, and still is, maintaining our safety in the face of this sort of extraordinary pandemic. That's the most important thing. That we come out on the other side of this alive. That over 200,000 people are dead now. Over 7 million people in the United States, inching close to 8 million have been infected with this virus. And so safety is the number one concern. I wasn't sure. I knew that it would matter, that I needed to post this information, that the information needed to be persistent and consistent, and that we would see it in a variety of different ways. The beginning of the lockdown, where there were very few people out, doing billboards, of course, was not really the thing to do. It became more important to do, for instance, newspaper inserts, so where thousands upon thousands of leaflets of the image that's currently on the screen would go into the home, that door hangers would go into the home, that we would simply meet people where they were, not where we wanted them to be. That was one part of it. Then, of course, we knew that with the um, unemployment rising in the country, where millions of people were thrown off their jobs, that and people and food lines were therefore growing, that getting information to food pantries and food banks would be absolutely critical. And so we put all of our information, a lot of our information, into reusable grocery bags, took those grocery bags to the food banks, into the food shelters and pantries, where people were lining up for food. And we gave out thousands and thousands and thousands of bags in that way. Then we started getting information and calls from a number of different organizations, cultural institutions around the country, um, from SCAD in Atlanta, from the University of the Arts in Philadelphia, at Duke in Carolina, in Dallas, where a whole consortium of people joined in, starting with the Dallas Contemporary, very, very important. The Portland Museum of Art, the Cleveland Museum of Art, etc. All of these institutions began to realize that they could, in fact, have a dialogue with their communities, and their communities in a way that they had never had dialogue before. Most of these institutions are white institutions. Most of them have very, very little contact, really, with their African American constituents in a deep and sustained way. And all of them were trying to figure out how to do that. And suddenly this project sort of appears, and they realize that there is a way finally for them to sort of get involved more deeply in the community, and at this critical time, and to say that this is a community that we actually care about. We care about you. This institution cares about you. And so that has been the sort of extraordinary response. The response, the deepest response in some ways, has been amongst institutions themselves that have historically not really connected with their Black, brown communities. They are using this project in a really dynamic, in a very, very sustained, in a very important way, in a way that these institutions have never done in the past. And that has been remarkable. And so it's sort of been this lifeline between these cultural institutions and the other constituents and communities in which they hope to serve. It's been really quite remarkable to see.
It's been a real connector, and one of the real privileges of being a fly on the wall this morning, your conversation with Mayor Bottoms, was that generous offer that she made to connect you with other mayors in other cities that were also struggling with these same high numbers, these same high percentages. What
Yes.
I'm also struck by is something that is part and parcel of your practice, and that's the number of times you've used us, our, and we. Tell us a bit more about how this project came to life and who is the us, who is the we, who is the our that is really, really bringing this to fruition. It's really remarkable.
Well, it's, I think I often start with we because I care about we. I care about us. And so, of course, I'm a visual artist, and I'm a visual artist who cares about my community and where I'm from, where I come from. I care about my deeper humanity. I care about the way in which I connect with the people around me and my community and keeping my community safe. And so, to that extent, I think of producing a work like this as my responsibility. My responsibility to myself, my responsibility to my family, and my responsibility to uh, uh, my community at large. I started this project with my own, with my best friend Pierre, and my own money, hoping that others would join on eventually, and they did. The first major support for the project came from Syracuse University, which was really wonderful, which is where I am an artist in resident at the moment and for the next several years. Having their support was absolutely instrumental in getting the word out and spreading the word as quickly as we were able to. It made a great deal of difference to the project. And then it's, I think, Andrea, it's like really being in constant conversation with my friends and my colleagues around the country, talking about what they were doing during the pandemic, sharing what I was doing during the pandemic, and eventually all of these various institutions, one by one, began signing on. Ford Foundation signed on after seeing this billboard in Times Square. We were able to do a series of wheat paste campaigns. Then a really wonderful connector from Lori Farrell, who began her work actually at SCAD, who is now in Dallas, who introduced me to a collective in Detroit, the Library Collective, who immediately signed on and did an extraordinary project there. And then, I enlisted The Office, a really wonderful team of producers that I've been working with on a number of projects over the years, from Grace Notes, my performance projects, to other projects that I've done on the history of violence here in New York. I enlisted them, and they've been helping me a great deal with getting the word out and helping with the design and making sure that we're in touch with all of our partners around the country and internationally, since everyone has slightly different parameters that they're dealing with. So it's been a deep and involved project, starting with myself, with Pierre Loving, with Syracuse University, and with the office, and finally with all of our partners, working with Leatrice, of course. It's just been wonderful in Atlanta, and Leatrice and I have known each other for many, many years. We started out doing projects together for the National Black Arts Festival. So being able to work with Leatrice, who understood the value and the importance of this project, and bringing this project to the mayor of Atlanta, so that the mayor of Atlanta understood the importance of the role of art in marking and making a difference to how people understood the impact of the virus on their lives. And, as she said earlier, they have a governmental response, and sort of very direct and unmitigated, but they're not necessarily concerned with the aesthetic values of work. I am. Leatrice is, and I think that in part it's the aesthetic, it's the way in which we present material to the world that then allows us to have a deeper and greater impact. And so we are working hard. I think we're doing good work. I know that the work is important, is invaluable, and I see that every day as week by week other institutions sign up and sign on, and more food pantries, food banks come back to us repeatedly asking us for more of our material to be given out to the people that are lining up for their groceries once a week. We
One
know
of
we're having an impact, and it's pretty extraordinary.
It's a really deep impact. And one of the things that's very exciting to us here in Atlanta is that several of these were just installed in the West End Mall. And so people all over the city are going to have an opportunity to spend time with this work and contemplate this work. One of the things that is so moving for me is that the images are often so personal. And I'd love it if you'd take a moment to say a bit about the part of the series and the images from the series that incorporate your mother.
But I mean, again, we started during the lockdown. I wasn't able to like rush out into the world and make more photographs, even though I did make some photographs using Zoom. We've sort of learned a lot about, these sort of new technologies or the use of technology during this time. Um, I've been making images for so long and gathering other artists for many, many years and photographing my family for as long as I can remember. And so I just went into my archives. I went into my archives and I knew that, that yes, it's social. This is a social project, but it's absolutely personal. And I rediscovered this really wonderful photograph that I had made of my mother at work many years ago. And, I just thought that there was something so resilient, so warm and inviting and wonderful and open, and that in the midst of this horrible thing that we are all experiencing, life is beautiful. And if we want to be a part of it, then we have to hold on, right? That we have to hold on. And that there are things to live for, that life is worth living. And I thought that there was simply no better image, really, than to use the image of my mother as a marker for the moment, who simply exudes exuberance.
Mothers are pretty remarkable.
Yes, they are. And I'm very sorry that you've just lost yours. I'm very sorry that you've just lost yours in the midst of something that's not only this virus of this enormous impact, but to lose your mother at this time during this must be very, 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 very difficult. And my heart goes out to you
Thank you.
this morning.
Thank you. So we've spent a lot of time over the years talking about the role of artists, ethics, and leadership. And I'd love to know what you've learned about yourself during this incredible time of creating this project and thinking through what this moment means and what this project means writ large. What is the role of the artist right now?
Oh, I think maybe, in some ways, James Baldwin said it best. Our role is to dig deep and to seek out the truth, no matter where we find it, and no matter how difficult the road, and that that there's no other way for us to live. I think if you want to get to the bone of it and the truth of it, you have to be willing to go to those sort of unexpected depths. And it keeps me very, very busy. It keeps me deeply engaged. It keeps me up at night. It keeps me anxious, wondering about how do we systematically not only impact change, but make change? How do we question? How do we present the sort of deeper moral questions that are at stake that we absolutely have to deal with whether we want to or not, right? That I think is the role. I think that we, artists offer up the emotional barometer for not only the artist, but for society. And we do that whether we are doing it through art and language or through music and dance, through poetry and spoken word and literature, right? It is our solace. It is the thing that we come back to. And of course, it represents, I think, in the deepest way, the soul of a nation who we are is represented and reflected in the work in which we make and that we offer to ourselves and to the world around us, even when those people on the other side may not be willing to listen or to hear or to see you in the depths of who you are because of their own blinders. It is nonetheless there. And there's always a discovery that we're always endlessly discovering ourselves through work. We endlessly discover ourselves and our emotional range through music, through dance. Again, they become the things, thing that resides outside of language that helps us to negotiate the everyday and the complexities of the lives in which we live. And so I am thrilled. I am honored to be an artist. I feel that I have an extraordinary privilege of being able to live my life on the edge of things where I am allowed to comment on the life that we live and the life that I live and be able to share that openly with those around me. What gift! What a gift that I can wake up every morning. I don't have to go to the post office if I don't want to, right? I'm able to be in my studio, working in this practice and working in this way is a great honor, and that people are paying attention to it is even a deeper honor. So I have to respect those who are looking. I have to respect my audience, and I cherish them, even when I don't know who they are. But I appreciate their taking the time to look, to see, and hopefully to learn something not only about the work, but about themselves through the work.
Well, you mentioned the word gift, and it's truly been a gift to the city. Between working with the city of Atlanta and partnering with SCAD, the Savannah College of Art and Design, to bring this to fruition and to make this a reality, it's truly, truly been a gift. And I'd really be remiss if I did not mention that before we close out this afternoon. One of the things that's so compelling about spending time inside for so long is that when you go out, you get to see amazing things like this that weren't there before the pandemic and were recently installed in the West End and that's in front of SCAD, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So truly,
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. I want to say something else before I get off, because I do think that this is an important. Um, Even with all of the sort of changes that are happening, there are many dynamic things that are happening across our cultural landscape. But we rarely see in public forum, outside of institutions, outside of TV, media, etc., but out in the world around us, we rarely actually see um, dynamic, welcoming images of Black people. And I think that in part, uh, this project about, in this sort of consortium, or rather this group of images that allows us to look at people earnestly, honestly, I think is one of the benefits of this project. When I drive through my community in Syracuse, there are no other places. The only images that I see in my neighborhood at this moment are the images that I've actually made. Right? Right? Literally, they are the only images that are there. And these ads, my lawn signs, for instance, have been up months, for months, and they're still there. Right? People mow their lawn, the city mows the lawn, but they put the signs back, right? It is the only visual representation of a people in my neighborhood. And I think that that's an extraordinary thing. And I think that this is true in many of the places where this work is being seen and shown. This is another level of representation that I think is really important about this project.
We thank you so much. We thank you for Resist COVID and for your time today and for this intimate conversation. So
Thank you so much for it. Thank you for organizing it. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the wonderful questions. And to Leatrice, again, thank you so much for inviting me to the project and for bringing Resist COVID to the city of Atlanta.